welcome to the most wonderful time of the year, OctoberFest 2020. And we're back. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Project Gen X podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I am Big Dave.
And we are here somewhere in the middle of OctoberFest 2020, having a great time. And today, this evening, whenever it is, hopefully you're listening to this at midnight, in front of a bonfire, or maybe, with candles and whatever it is, with the lights turned down low, because we're going to be talking about urban legends, not the movie. We always do that. We'll get these subjects and I'll have to put not the movie afterwards, because it's like, although I do like the movie Urban Legend, it is very cheesy, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit in this, because the subject matter of urban legends most definitely comes in to that movie and all the rumors and everything. Dave, you majored, or you minored in folklore?
Yeah,
and
actually, it's what you refer to as folk studies.
Okay.
Basically, folklore and anthropology broke off from basically the same train. Folklore has been around longer.
Train, we'll come back to that in a minute.
Anthropology
right.
Basically broke off from folk studies originally, where anthropology talks about these are who these people are and this is what they do.
Okay.
Folk studies is more about this is who these people are, this is their worldview, this is their beliefs, this is how they hand down lessons and how to, traditions and stories, and you can have, when people think folklore, they think Appalachia.
Yeah.
No,
or they think backwoods somewhere. Yeah, or the frontier or something.
But you can have folklore in there can be corporate folklore.
Absolutely.
There's actually there was I can't think of the gentleman's name. My wife is going to kill me because she actually got to interview him. NFL has its own version of lore.
Well, let's just go with one, especially from Gen X. That is a huge piece of Gen X folklore. It all has to do with Richard Gere and a gerbil.
Oh,
I mean, let's be honest. How many times have we heard that story? And even in the movie Scream, they say, you can only hear that story so many times before you have to start believing it. I'm
talking about something actually, a little bit,
But that's or the fact, or any of the stories about Marilyn Manson. That is,
you can build a lore around it.
Right, so I mean, it's one of those things that, every generation has theirs.
I was trying to be a little academic, and you drug it immediately into gerbils.
Absolutely. But I mean, let's be honest. How many times did that story come? I mean, it kept coming around, and it was always Richard Gere. It was never somebody else. It was always Richard Gere for some reason.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that he was married to Cindy Crawford at the time, and it's like...
yeah.
So, yeah, it's weird.
One of the classes that I actually got to take in college was folklore and the supernatural. So I spent an entire semester talking about supernatural folklore.
So you probably talked about the disappearing hitchhiker.
That's one of them.
Was it the hook?
Hookman,
where it's or let's see, what's some of the other
ones? La Llorona.
The woman in white. That's true.
Let's
see, what's some of the other ones? Oh, the fact that Mikey from the Life serial, let's say what would be supernatural, I guess, but it's another one that's another one of our folklore. Was that the kid that played Mikey in the Life cereal commercials died from eating Pop Rocks and drinking a Coke at the same time.
Yeah, not exactly supernatural folklore.
No, but you know what I'm saying. It's that goes back into something else, and again was touched on in the movie Urban Legend. Well, but that's something that we heard over and over and over, because it started off. We heard at an early age that you can't eat Pop Rocks and drink a Coke. I think it was actually a Pepsi. It was actually branded like you couldn't drink, eat Pop Rocks, drink a Pepsi, or your stomach will explode.
No, actually, that's regional, because I've heard it, both called Pepsi and Coke.
Well, yeah,
depending on where we were.
But basically, it was you can't drink a soda, and eat Pop Rocks.
It's
because your stomach will
explode. It's basically the equivalent of trying to eat a Mentos and drink a Coke.
Or the one they used to always talk about, how if you give was it an Alka-Seltzer to a duck, that they would explode.
Seagulls.
Whatever. Exactly.
But actually, it does some
damage, but not what you're told.
Animal cruelty is a felony now, and I wouldn't want anybody to do that. So don't do that.
Exactly. But that is the quote unquote folklore that we grew up with. A lot of that stuff. And that's the whole thing with this. With just naming this urban legends, we're not necessarily just talking about like ghost stories. We're talking about like there were all kinds of those.
Well, that was like about growing up, I always heard the one about, if you see a car driving around with its lights off, don't ever flash your lights at it.
Because it's a gang initiation. Exactly. Thing. I know.
Which, did you ever know anybody?
Nobody, no. And that's the whole thing with urban legends. Somebody always said, I know somebody. Somebody knows somebody that this happened to.
Academically, that's what they call friend of a friend.
Exactly.
That's how you legitimize it without actually having to legitimize it.
I remember a girl that I worked with almost 20 years ago. She was younger. She was a teenager. I was in my 20s somewhere. Telling a story.
Alan Dundas. I just remembered. That was the gentleman who did the study on the NFL folklore.
Okay. So telling a story about, again, one of her mom's friends who was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
A guy came in who had dreadlocks and wanted them cut off. And so she started cutting them and found a spider's nest.
No, that's an old one. I know. Because that goes all the way back to the 50s with the woman who had the beehive.
I know. It's like, but it's one of those things. And she, she's telling the story about, when the spiders came out and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I told her, I was like, that's an urban legend. No, it happened. It happened to a friend of my mom's friend, I've heard that so many times of this. Some other ones that are funny that I won't tell on here as well because they're fairly risque. For college of hearing about some stuff that whatever.
Yeah.
But it's it is one of those situations where you hear this stuff and it's funny because this stuff was like pre-internet that they perpetrate. They just kept going and they kept perpetuating themselves and you would hear it and it didn't matter where you went to. There was a version.
Oh, believe me, I know because I went from, the different states that I lived in, and you would hear different versions of it. Right.
Well, it's like, okay, into the supernatural, Bloody Mary.
That was the first one I was going to bring up.
So it's one of those things that, there are many different versions of this story that all end the same way, where you basically go into you stand in front of a mirror, turn the lights off.
Yep.
Some people say you just say Bloody Mary 3 times into the mirror, and then she appears, and she scratches your face. Sometimes it was you have to turn around
each time
multiple
that you
times
said
and say Bloody Mary. There are versions of it locally. We have the Bell Witch. Okay. And it's one of those things that the version here, when I was growing up, was if you go into, if you go in the bathroom, stare in the mirror, turn the lights off, stare in the mirror, and say, I hate the Bell Witch 3 times, then the Bell Witch would, And, I mean, it's like, don't give me that. That also comes into the movie Candyman. That was the whole thing. If you say Candyman 3 times in the mirror, then,
you're never going to hear me speak ill of Kate.
Yeah.
As we know, the Bell Witch, because I don't live but maybe 15 minutes from the cave.
You are near Adams, Tennessee, I know.
And the family up there still claims that Kate is still around and still harassing them.
Of course, we also know that there are 2 other versions of that story, that one of them was in North Carolina and one was in Alabama. They're almost the exact same story. And, again, it's frontier legends, a lot to do with it. So
no, you're not going to catch me speaking ill of the Bell Witch living that close.
I'm just saying that was the local when I was growing up. It was the Bell Witch was going to come get you.
There's urban legends, and then there's haints, and I'm not messing with the haints, and that's a whole different set of stories.
I ain't scared of no ghosts. So.
I hope she comes to visit you. Talking about the spider bite, there's been several of those.
Right.
Another version of it is a guy who's been traveling overseas and he gets bit by a spider, and he comes back to the U.S. and he's not feeling well, and he goes to the hospital, and while he's at the hospital, millions and millions of these little baby spiders start crawling out from underneath his skin.
Yeah,
kind of like the roach scene in Creepshow.
Yeah. Well, another version of that is somebody who they thought they had a an ingrown hair,
Yeah.
or something, and then it turned out that a spider had laid eggs in his cheek, or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I've heard some other even less savvy.
Yeah, good. Stop it.
I'm not going to get of stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But again, and again, I've heard that particular story from someone who said that they knew it happened to somebody, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, they didn't. Okay.
Key phrase here. Friend.
I know.
If you hear somebody say friend of a friend,
I know.
more than likely,
exactly.
you're not going to be able to substantiate it.
We also know that some of these, especially the ones that are a little more paranormal or just horror related in general, usually were morality tales that people would kind of, like the guy with the hook, the escaped convict with the hook for a hand.
Yeah,
that was kind of hey, teenagers, don't go on dark roads and make out and stuff, or else this person might come and try to kill you.
Yeah.
Or the babysitter, like the calls coming from inside the house. That whole thing of like it kind of is the whole hey, mind your kids, don't leave them with babysitters, stay home with them, type stuff. What are you looking at there? I know you're dead air.
I'm sorry, something just caught my. Evidently, I found a article here that it's 11 terrifying urban legends that turned out to be true.
A few of them have.
One of them they have listed as Candyman.
Oh, really? Maybe a version of it, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm trying to get to the bones of it here.
Okay, while you're doing that.
Evidently, in 1987, the Chicago Reader published a story about Ruth McCoy, a woman living in a Chicago housing project, who made a frantic call to 911, insisting she was being attacked in her apartment. Responders eventually found her dead of gunshot wounds.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like Candyman.
The complex...
I tell you...
Evidently, the intruders came through the wall of her apartment and got her.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. I don't know why they've got that one listed. That was a weird tangent.
Here's another one. We were talking about like the quote unquote gang initiation. About. There's two more that goes that. One of them is, and it was perpetuated by the movie. And it's funny how so many of these are perpetuated by either movies or television. Something you see it. And it's the movie New Jack City. About how a gang initiation is to go up and shoot somebody that you don't know. Yeah. Because that's what happened with the whole Wesley Snipes character. That's how he got jumped into the gang, basically. And it turned out to be Mario Van Peebles' mom, so it was kind of type thing. Yeah. The other one, and I've heard this one many times over the years, and it's not necessarily a gang initiation, but it is, I've actually heard a version of it that is a gang initiation. Okay. It is the ankle slicing car thief. Oh, where it's somebody gets under the car and they
wait for them to come. They wait for the
and then they slice their Achilles tendon.
Basically, what they did in
Pet Cemetery.
Pet Cemetery, with
Gage. and then they steal the car. Yeah. I also had heard a version of that of a girl that I went. Now a woman, but at the time we were still kids. When she had gone to college, they were warning the legend, the urban legend that was going around there was that it was a gang initiation, and it gets really kind of racist here, to be honest. Was that what they had to do to get jumped into the gang was to get the pinky of a white woman. And what they would do is they would hide underneath the car, and they would do the slice, and when they'd reach down to grab, then they'd grab the hand and cut their pinky off and take off with it. Wow. I know that was really like in depth, but she went to a college very deep in the South, and so that explains a lot of it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, here's one that turns out to be true. You've always heard about somebody goes, they rent a hotel room, and they're sleeping in the room, but there's this awful smell.
Yeah, and there's a dead hooker underneath it. Yeah,
there's a dead body under, because those beds are basically a base.
Right. Yeah.
And then the mattress is set on top of the base. Well, this thing has been confirmed multiple times. In fact, one in 2010, guests at a budget lodge in Memphis found that they'd been sleeping over the dead body of Sonny Millbrook. And this was we're talking about Memphis.
Yeah, I know. And we're from Tennessee. We can say that.
Fabric softener had been stuffed in the ceiling tiles to try to
stop the smell.
Yeah.
Well, along that lines, and it's one that turned out to be true. What is her name? Hold on, I'm gonna find this because I want to get this right, because it's a very famous story that's fairly new. It's only a few years old.
Talking about Slender Man?
No. This is
because that started out as a creepypasta.
And we can get into a little bit of that.
That has
also
turned into a honest to goodness real.
Well, somebody
urban legend.
It's turned, and they try to say that it's a totem. That it's this is something that passed down over time. Whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not. It was something that was started on creepypasta that bled over into the mainstream, and there is a very high-profile case involving some teenage girls that started believing in the whole thing, and they tried to kill one of their friends.
Or did kill one of their friends.
No, they didn't kill her. They tried to. They stabbed her a bunch of times, but they didn't kill her.
Okay.
What is the name of this case? Okay, I got it now. The case of Elisa Lam.
Okay.
You've heard about this one. Elisa Lam checked into a hotel in downtown Los Angeles in February of 2013. People started complaining about the water in the hotel, like had a bad smell to it, and it was kind of black. And they found her body in the water tank on top of the thing.
Yeah.
And there's been more to it, because it's one of those things that, like, the last time that she was seen is on video footage from inside the elevator, and it looks like she's talking to somebody and looking out like somebody's chasing her.
Yeah.
Come to find out, she was also bipolar and was off her meds. And it's one of those things that, they kept saying, well, she couldn't have gotten into the tank, blah, blah, blah. That's been disproved also, because there actually was a ladder that went up to a higher platform that she could have gotten in there and gotten trapped. So, but that still goes into the whole, there's a smell, something's going on. What happened here, But yeah, I wanted to get her name because that's a very famous case that from the last 7 years, that has gone all over the internet. People like, maybe she was being stalked. Maybe it was this, maybe, whatever. And what else? Let's see. We got that one. There are so many of here.
Well, I found a website here where it has like the most famous urban legend per by state.
Yeah, I'm trying to. What is it in Tennessee?
You want to know what the one in Tennessee is?
Yeah,
it's the boy in the bathroom at Pine Haven School over in
I know
Jamestown.
I don't know that. That particular
Evidently,
legend.
The legend is the boy was cornered by a group of bullies in the bathroom, shoved into a mirror which shattered and killed him.
Okay.
To avoid getting caught committing murder, the bullies decided to bury the body beneath the floorboards. And people say that if you go inside the school, you can still see the reflection of the little boy looking at you in the mirror.
Okay. A couple of them dealing with school. Also, usually they're college related.
Yeah.
One of them is the dead roommate, where a roommate comes back and she thinks that she hears her roommate like making noises. She thinks that she's involved with her boyfriend.
Yep.
And then so she doesn't turn the light on, and she just goes and gets in her bed. And when she wakes up the next morning, she finds her roommate dead, and scrawled on the wall is above her bed in blood is, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn the light on?" Another one that goes hand in hand in that is the same thing of a woman comes in and I think it's the same thing where like the roommate has a dog or something, and she hears something under the bed, and she reaches down, and the dog licks her hand
all night long. Puts her to
and
sleep.
then she puts whatever, and she goes, and she wakes up the next day. The roommate's dead. The dog's nowhere to be found. Apparently, the guy was under the bed and licked her.
Yeah.
So she thought that it was the dog.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most colleges have some kind
Oh
of
yeah,
ghost story or
there's
urban.
there's
I
a
mean,
bunch of them around.
Western
so-
Kentucky University actually has. I think their library actually has a page dedicated to the ghost stories on campus.
All right.
You know, like when they were building the auditorium up on. I should know the name of the auditorium. The auditorium they were building up on the hill. Evidently, a guy fell while they were building the roof to the floor of the building and got killed, and evidently he still haunts the the building.
One of my favorites with those is whenever somebody says a building's haunted because that somebody fell into the footing, like when they poured the concrete, and they didn't bring him out, and so his body still. Well, first off, if you know anything about construction, you wouldn't do that because that actually weakens the integrity of the. you would pull that body out. I mean, you would stop work. Obviously try to save the guy, but even if he was gone, it's one of those things you want to pull that out. Otherwise, you're going to wind into a very big problem with your structure later on down the line.
Okay, so that Jimmy Hoffa not buried in concrete.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that people have said about that. It's like there's a reason why we know that he's not in the concrete in Giant Stadium. Of course, we know now because Giant Stadium's not there any longer.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think the stadium is. Did they tear that down? I don't remember. It was been because I know they have a new stadium that they play in.
But another one from Western is Pierce Ford Tower. It's a male dorm. I forget how many stories it is, but evidently the elevator was not working right, and this guy had gotten out of the shower and he had to go down a floor to get to his dorm room. And when the doors opened, the elevator wasn't there, and he fell down the shaft
all the way down. Yeah.
Well, they say now at certain points of the year, you see wet footprints appear down the hall just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, nice. I tell you one that I always heard, and you could probably. I always heard that it was in Kentucky.
Okay.
That there was a young lady who was she was going to go out one evening, and she was waiting for a date, and she'd gotten dressed. She was in her room. She's in the second floor of her house, and the boyfriend called and canceled because of the storm that was coming in.
Oh, she was like up in the cupola.
Oh, she was up in the window and she basically cursed the storm, and she got struck by lightning and killed. And to this day, you can still see her image in the glass in the window.
I think that's just a general urban
I know.
legend because
we always heard that it was somewhere in Kentucky. That's whenever it was told, it was like, no, it was in Kentucky somewhere. You know, it's like
now if you want one from Kentucky, you've got a couple up there that you can go, you know, whether it's ghost or whether it's actual urban legend. If you want to go urban legend, there's the Goat Man to Pope Lake.
Oh, yes. There are
which is right around Louisville.
There are several Goat Man stories.
Well,
that one is the
that's and basically he's half man, half goat, and he tries to get people to get out on the train trestle, and get run over, or he attacks them.
Yep.
I think even Ghost Adventures went up and investigated.
Right.
But there's several things like you've got the Mothman, you've got the Jersey Devil, you've got
you're
Bigfoot,
getting into the cryptids and stuff on that,
but then you've also got the sanitarium up there.
Oh, the Waverly Sanitarium.
Which is supposedly
quote unquote the most haunted place in the U.S. Yeah, I know. It's
one of the most haunted places in the U.S.
And it's so haunted that they do overnight stays and stuff there. So I'd do it. I'm not scared.
That's something we should do at some point.
I'm not a.
We need some equipment.
Yeah. I will be nice.
Go ahead. Say what you're going to say. Go ahead making fun of me because I like to go on a ghost hunt every once in a while.
That's fine. I'll tell you one of my favorite modern urban legends.
Okay.
And because this hits me right, right in my in the good spot. Okay. and not in a dirty way. Is Polybius.
Oh, the video game.
Okay.
I had forgotten about this one.
So
tell the story on it, because this one's so far back in my memory, I don't remember all.
This was the original stories about this came about in around 2000, 2001. So early, when the internet was really kind of becoming the internet. Okay, like really becoming the internet.
Welcome to AOL.
Yeah. Well, a little past that. Basically, what it was is that there was this game called Polybius that apparently appeared in only like in a couple of arcades in the,
like it
in
was
the
like-
Pacific Northwest. It was
like
like it's
Portland?
Portland, around that area.
Yeah.
It's kind of where you hear that it's somewhere in there. Basically, what it was is that it supposedly it was a game that drove people insane when you played it.
Okay.
And the again, supposedly, what it was for is that it was a CIA recruitment technique.
Gotcha.
If you could play this game and not go insane, then they would come and find you and recruit you into the CIA.
Yeah.
No one has ever been able to produce anything that this actually it existed. You know, there's just like I said, it was in there, and supposedly it happened in the early '80s.
Here's a version of it where they say it was a government-run crowdsourced psychology experiment
Yeah.
in Portland, Oregon in 81.
Yeah, but it was 20 years later before anybody ever heard about it, and there's
Yeah.
never been anything whatsoever. Now, something that was kind of fun is that there is an episode of The Simpsons where they're in a video arcade,
Yeah.
and there is a Polybius machine in there.
You mean like this one?
Yeah, something like that. I've seen some mock-ups of them, you know, because the thing is, no one can ever. There's no general consensus of what the actual game was, you know. But yeah, that's become in modern folklore, you know, has become a thing. So
Yeah.
okay, here's one. You want to get into one that turned out to be real?
Okay.
The urban legend of the skeleton in the tree.
I don't think I've heard this one.
Yeah, you have. Okay, maybe this is not him. Well, one of the legends basically is that someone, or maybe it's not the skeleton in the tree. Well, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else. What it is that the body in the tree is Halloween decoration.
Oh.
Where it was one of those things where somebody had, you know, where people thought that it was just a really realistic looking Halloween decoration,
Yeah.
but it turned out to be someone actually hanging from a tree.
Yeah.
Now, that version of it has never been substantiated. However,
Here we go.
there was and this is really funny. Again, go back to television because of something that happened on the television show The Incredible Hulk. You know, that ran in the late '70s,
Oh, yeah.
early '80s. There was an episode where they went to it was like a carnival or something. Like maybe he was working at a carnival or something like that, and they were in like the fun house.
Oh no, that's an actual deal. Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And so it was one of those things that as they're looking through all these props and stuff, they're like, man, what is this? And come to find out, it really was a dead body
Yeah.
that was hanging up in this, they had been using for years. It had been in the prop
Well,
house
it
and
was-
no one knew.
It was sitting in a chair,
Yeah,
type thing.
yeah.
I think Ripley's actually ended up
They
buying
did
the
eventually.
body and putting it on
but
display.
it was one of those things where it was like, no, it had been used in a bunch of stuff over the years, and people had no idea that it was a legit dead body.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, Ripley's ended up buying the thing and
Yeah.
putting on display for. I think they've still got it actually.
I don't know. All right, we talked about it, but we didn't really talk about it. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. This is a very famous. I have heard this story many different ways.
Well, this story was even told, I think, it was either the first or second season of Supernatural,
Maybe,
which
yeah.
actually that show started out as dealing with
yeah, I know.
urban
There's
urban legends
the,
and ghost stories and that type of
There's
thing.
the story from Chicago of it's something Mary, Resurrection Mary.
Yeah.
Basically, what it is, and this is a story that you've heard quite a bit, where there is, and it's called she's Resurrection Mary because it's the Resurrection graveyard or cemetery.
Yeah.
That this woman in white, people keep finding, seeing her there, and you're like, hey, you know, where, you know, you need a ride? Like, sure. And she gets in the car
Yep.
and tells you where she's going, and when you get there, she's gone. And then people have gone and like knocked on the door, like, "Hey, somebody!" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's Mary. She died so many years ago." You know that has been a thing outside of Chicago for years and years and years. Now, there's another version of it that I've heard so many times it's not even funny. Of somebody picks up a hitchhiker on the side of the road. A lot of times it's in broad daylight.
Yeah.
And they're driving down the road and they're talking to this person, and all of a sudden the person looks at them and says, "Jesus is coming back soon," and then they're gone.
I haven't heard that one.
That was one that went around a lot.
Now,
And,
the one that I've heard is driver picks up a woman hitchhiker, and it's kind of chilly. She's got a sweater on,
Right.
And he's like, "Hey, where are you going?" She gives him the address, and they talk. And
Oh, that's the resurrection Mary. They pick her up, and then they takes her to the cemetery.
Take her
that's
to
what
the
it
cemetery.
Is. That's it.
And she disappears.
Right.
And then they get out of the car and they go in the cemetery looking for her, and they find the sweater hanging on her tombstone.
Yeah. There was a song in the 50s that was based around one of those where a guy picks up a girl and takes her to her home, and she disappears. I think I can't remember who it was that did it. And he goes and asks her mom, and she was like, "No, that was my daughter. She died a year ago," or something. Like, it's kind of one of those.
Yeah.
There's been those stories have gone around quite a bit. So.
Another version of that is a guy picks up a woman in white, hitchhiker. He gives the address. They pull up to this old, and this is the version they did in Supernatural. Pull up to this old abandoned house. Mm-hmm. The woman goes, "I can't go home," and disappears. And then the car goes nuts, and they try to get out of there, and they can't. They end up finding the driver dead.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a different version of that one. I'm trying to think because I know we're missing some big ones here.
We talked about Bloody Mary. We did Hookman. We talked about Slender Man a little bit.
Well, okay. What's funny? Let's talk about that. Okay, like the whole Hook, the guy with the hook.
Yeah.
It's funny to watch a lot of those late '90s teen horror movies. Yeah. Because obviously you have heard, but the whole thing is that I know what you did last summer is all around that. Yeah. Basically, it's that legend that the whole movie is based on.
3 movies out of that?
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, the first one's the only one that's even halfway decent to watch. Yeah. So,
well, there's even another version of that where girl gets in her car going home from a party, and part of the way home, this trucker pulls up right behind her and keeps flashing his brights at her, and she keeps going faster, and he keeps catching up. He keeps blinking his brights at her. She pulls up the house, slams the car into park, and starts running towards the house. And the truck driver jumps out of his truck, runs over, and jumps on a dude that was in the back seat trying to kill her. And he would flash his lights trying to get him to duck down. Back down.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. Again, the movie Urban Legend opens with that one. Somebody she pulls up to a gas station, and he's trying to tell her that there's somebody in the back seat. And trying to think some of the other ones because there's bunches. I mean, there's tons. A lot of these they wound up being campfire stories or ghost the stories that you would tell your friends when you're growing up.
Campfire stories at sleepovers.
Right.
Out camping somewhere.
Now, one that I kind of hinted earlier.
Oh, here we go.
No. This was it's the story about the train. You know which one I'm talking. I know as the train, right? And on cue, the train in the background. No, about the guy that works for the train for the railroad company that takes his son to work, and he works on the trestle.
Yeah.
Whenever boats come through, it's one of those things he has to move it but then get it back so the trains can come through. And the story goes that there's a boat coming through, and then here's the train whistle, and he's like, okay, this is going to be close, and he looks for his son, and he can't find him, and he starts looking around, and he looks down and sees that he's caught in the gears of the trestle.
The trestle.
And it's one of those things he has to make a decision. If he doesn't put it back in place, and a bunch of people are going to die, but he doesn't have time to go and save his son, and so he winds up pulling the thing and killing his own son in order to save all these people's lives. Now, I have heard that multiple times at church services and youth camps and stuff. It's like, oh, this is what God did when He sent Jesus to earth.
So I haven't heard this one.
That story in the religious community, especially I guess probably in the Pentecostal religious community more than, is so prevalent that there was actually a documentary made about where it started, and apparently it was somewhere in Mississippi was when the story started, and it kind of spread all throughout the South about this, no substantiation whatsoever of that it actually happened. So yeah, I mean that is another urban legend.
It's a story to make a point.
Exactly, and it's but it's there are a ton. There's a lot of them that aren't even that. Obviously with OctoberFest, we're trying to, we're talking about the horrific ones more than anything else, or the ones that are paranormal or just creepy or whatever, There's always. Oh, I tell you one, and this one perpetuates itself across. I think just about every state has a version of this one.
Okay.
Is the Gravity Hill, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's a, there's a, usually what it is, again, there's a train. It's somewhere, usually near a train crossing.
A train trestle.
Or a crossing, usually.
Yeah.
And that
or it's a bridge.
Yeah,
or
that supposedly at some point, decades earlier, a school bus or something like that got hit, and everybody was killed. And if you go and park on the tracks and put it in neutral, that the spirits of all the little kids will come and push the car out of the way so it doesn't get hit by a car. And it's an optical illusion, is what it is. Where you think that it's pushing uphill or something, but it's not actually. But there is a story of that like everywhere.
And it deals basically with a idea in folklore called liminal spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And liminal spaces are where you tend to find, supernatural happenings.
Right.
We're talking about where water meets land.
Okay.
Midnight.
Yeah.
Which is right between day and night. Caves. You see a lot of supernatural stories around caves because it's between earth and sky,
mm-hmm.
or you're between.
Okay.
Well, you're between earth.
Right.
It's. Doorways, windows. There's a lot of folklore
mirrors,
with ghosts, mirrors.
Lots of mirrors. Yeah, I know. That reminds me. Another one of my favorite modern myths or modern urban legends that every once in a while somebody will, did you hear about this? This is a real thing that it usually happens it's usually attributed to having happened in Russia, where they were out and they're drilling for oil or something like that, and they drill this really long hole, whatever, and then they drop a microphone down in to see if they can hear anything, and they can supposedly hear the souls in hell.
Well, no, that's actually a real place. In Russia they drilled a hole.
Yeah, but that story is not true. They
were trying to drill the deepest hole they could to get a really deep core sample.
And there is, I get that. But
they dropped a microphone down that hole, and they can't explain what they're hearing down there.
They're not hearing anything, is what it is. It's that story has perpetuated itself so many times. Of like, I've heard the same thing about another version of it.
Yeah,
was that.
No, that's a real
place. I know. The other version of it that I heard was that Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau.
Okay, there you go.
Jacques Cousteau, back in the day when he was still alive, was doing a deep sea dive in the Atlantic. Was it the Mariana Trench? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And came back up like shaking because they found a portal to hell or something. Like he could hear like the chains rattling from hell or something. It's like down in this thing. It's like and there's several different versions of that.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of those of just. Yeah, okay.
I don't know how they manage that, because there's like a second ocean that,
I know, exactly. Exactly. Well, they probably found where the Earth is actually hollow, and it's that's another thing people used to believe, is that there was a hole somewhere either at the North Pole or the South Pole that opened up into where it was a hollow Earth theory. That there actually was, the Earth was hollow, and that there was another civilization living underneath the crust. And there were people that, like, for decades were searching for that hole because they believed it. It's just like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who, wrote, Sherlock Holmes, all those books and it's so funny because Sherlock Holmes was such an analytical and practical person, like a very science-minded person. But Arthur Conan Doyle was very much into spiritualism. Him and his wife was a spiritualist, and he was so convinced that it was true that he would not believe that Harry Houdini was a magician. Like he thought, he was like, no, I know that everything you do is real. It's not fake. And he kept telling him, no, this is all tricks. Every bit of this is tricks. And Doyle was always like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. We know. It's just like.
What kills me is the rise of the whole flat Earth movement again. Like,
oh my goodness!
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. Well, we have the internet to thank for that. We have the internet to thank for the flat Earth. We have to thank for the anti-vaxxers, for the Slender Man, for just all these QAnon. All these crazy things that are out there.
We used to say that access to knowledge, would make things better.
No,
we've obviously proved that wrong at this point.
As I have said many times, Generation X. We didn't create it, but we built the internet. And then the generation in front of us, the boomers, have been trying ever since to put it back in the box and get rid of it. And the generation behind us, the millennials, have been finding the worst things possible to do with it. And that's where we get what we get with the internet. So it's...
I'm not going to go that far because honestly, Gen X has done some pretty awful things to the internet ourselves.
We have, but think about what has perpetuated itself once the millennials got a hold of it.
You're not
and again,
wrong.
This is a family-friendly podcast, and we're not going to get into a bunch of that stuff. But yeah, it's okay. Anyway, but yeah, plenty of like the whole Slender Man thing is probably the most popular, like the most well-known thing that's come from the internet like that. There have been some others. There have been
Slender Man has been the most fun for me to watch because I've been around the entire time.
Well,
because it started out as a creepypasta on Reddit.
Right.
And it was basically, creepypasta was a place where people would write horror stories, short stories, and post them in that subreddit for people. And everybody liked that one so well that they started making their own
memes.
versions.
I know. Well,
and memes.
Right. They started photoshopping a lot of stuff. And some of those photoshops are downright creepy. I mean, they really are.
And they couldn't look any more real.
No. Well, it's basically Jack Skellington is what it is. I mean, really, truly, when you look at it very much has that, that build and, that very skinny frame, that kind of stuff. But then they've taken it on to something else.
Well,
and then
the whole time, the guy was super tall, with super long limbs. Mm-hmm. But he had a normal-sized head, but there were no features on the head. It was completely...
very blank face. Yeah, I know.
Well, there's no face.
I know. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing there. I mean, it's just... I know. It's crazy. That one is really... It's some of the artwork I've seen with Slender Man is unsettling. It really is.
I'll be honest. At some point, I'm going to build one for Halloween, and I'm not going to make it obvious. I'm literally
kind of just out of frame, where which is
like halfway behind, like a tall bush or something, just kind of peeking out.
I'm trying. I had another one I can't remember that was internet. Oh,
the call is coming from in the house.
Okay, so that goes back to, what was that movie?
No, that was...
It was before the movie, but When a Stranger Calls was the name of the movie. That, again, it was a made-for-television movie that really sent that even further, but that was a legend that got around a lot.
Girl babysitting.
Babysitting, exactly. There are a lot of them dealing with babysitters or any number of that type of stuff. So.
Girl babysitting, she gets a creepy phone call. The guy's harassing her. After about the third one, she calls the operator, hey, can you please trace this phone call? And
the cops call and say, get out of the house because we trace it back. It's coming from inside the house. And it basically means that the guy's upstairs calling, which you can't do.
Back in the old day, you could. You could actually pick up your phone. I forget what button it was. Dial your number and hang it up, and it would ring. And if you picked it up at the right time, you could make it sound like you were calling from outside and talking to the person.
I don't know. That would go back to landlines and even before landlines, but you probably with a rotary phone or something like that. It probably had something to do with that.
No, it was a push button phone. Because I managed to do it a couple times when I was in high school.
Here's one. We didn't talk about black-eyed children. That's become a thing in the last couple decades.
Really?
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? It's like somebody... The story generally goes like this.
Okay.
A guy is walking back to his car.
Okay.
And he's approached by these, like, two kids that are like, hey, and this is at night usually, he's like, hey, we're lost. Can you give us a ride to, whatever type stuff? And the guy's about ready to do it. Then he looks at them again and notices that their eyes are completely black. And then gets in the car and drives off. And there are several different versions of it. Like maybe they come to your door and they knock on the door and they're trying to get you to let them in. And the whole thing is don't let them inside or else there's going to be problems, type stuff.
Okay, first off, if I see a couple kids and their eyes are completely black, I'm going to
assume
demon.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I'm going to be throwing rock salt at it.
That has become a the last couple of decades, you know, it's big. I think it started off in Michigan or something like that. It was like the first story that came out, and it's kind of spread around. You start hearing it.
Yeah.
Actually, I take that back. It was in the Badlands, which is what, Montana? Is that right? Or North Dakota?
No,
North Dakota.
Badlands or
North
the
Dakota.
Dakotas.
I knew it was something that started like up north.
Well,
and
you get,
I know
you get into the
Badlands,
you get in the Badlands and the Black Hills and all that.
Right.
All of that was sacred land
Right.
to the Native Americans up there, and the stories of the stuff that goes on up there is just amazing.
There are definitely, especially when we start getting into native. A lot of that folklore, you really get into some stuff. Obviously, we have not done enough. We have not done enough research to really jump into a lot of that stuff. I still feel like there's one big one that we're missing.
We weren't trying to get real academic on this.
No,
we were just trying
weren't.
to make it kind of fun.
I mean, you could say the Men in Black or one.
Yeah.
You know, they may be aliens themselves, or they may be some branch of the U.S. military or government that's
or
not
Illuminati.
on the books or something.
Yeah.
The Illuminati.
Yeah.
There's your great. I mean, and the thing is, that one has perpetuated so much that, you know, people are always looking at like Jay-Z or Lady Gaga or somebody like that. Like, oh, this obviously proves that they're part of the Illuminati.
Illuminati,
and I'm like,
the lizard people.
yeah, I mean, the lizard. There's another one. I mean, there are all.
Which I can make some comments there, but I won't.
All right. I tell you one we forgot. There was even a movie made about this.
Okay.
Alligators in the sewer.
Oh yeah.
The story goes that someone went to the Everglades and they were selling baby alligators, and they brought it home back to New York.
Yep.
And of course, the alligator grows bigger than the tank and all that kind of stuff. And so what do they
flush
do?
it.
Flush it down the toilet. And the alligator just survives in the sewer and becomes huge and type thing. There was a movie that was a made-for-television movie called Alligator, which is so wonderfully
Alligator
bad.
once again, this is USA Up All Night movies. They made Alligator and Alligator 2.
There was
Yeah.
Loosely also was what
that was an actual movie that you could go to the video store and rent.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I remember seeing Alligator and Alligator 2 on the rental shelves.
I remember watching it when it was on television and seeing it, renting it later.
And that's when we were living in Illinois, where the only place to rent movies was the big, huge, giant IGA in town.
There you go.
The IGA had its own little video rental place to where
right.
you could go in and rent a machine and like a couple movies for like $10 or something.
That reminds me, and this seriously goes into urban legends in and of themselves.
Okay.
There are several urban legends around movies.
Yeah.
Okay, like
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, about the munchkin that hung himself.
Yeah.
Which didn't turn out to be true.
There's something weird in the background though, because
it's a pelican. You could, if you go and look at it,
I've done the frame by frame.
It's a pelican. It raises its arms, but
Yeah.
the way that it's doing it with the trees, it looks like something else.
Yeah.
You know, there is.
That's one of the advantages of being a video editor.
Yeah.
I can dump
Get it
it into
down
my
to-
and I can get it
exactly.
down into frame by frame.
Right. There is obviously the dead kid in 3
3 Men and a Baby.
Baby.
It's a cutout stand up
of Ted Danson.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. There's several.
Poltergeist. We got to go into
Well,
Poltergeist.
you get a
and the
poltergeist
curse-
because of the curse of the poltergeist.
Yeah.
Two of the stars of the first movie died. I
Yeah.
mean, that's and
one
under
was murdered,
One
wasn't
of the
she?
older
Yeah.
sister was murdered by her boyfriend before they made the second one.
Right.
And then the girl that played Carol Ann died right as they were wrapping up the second or the third movie. She had like obstructed bowel or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it was a toxic shock, type thing that got her. And I think that there was a if I'm not mistaken on that third movie there was a crewman that was electrocuted and killed on set.
That
if I'm
sounds
not
right,
mistaken.
yeah.
Now at the same time there are a ton of stories around The Exorcist when they were making that movie about whether or not it was, hell, Billy Graham said that that the devil was in every frame of that movie, type stuff. Of course, that's what it was. There's plenty of. Now, one of my favorite urban legends is not horror related at all.
Okay.
That it has to deal with movies, and that has to do. And you heard it as much as I did.
Okay.
There were two versions of King Kong versus Godzilla. There was the U.S. version where King Kong won, and there was the Japanese version where Godzilla won.
Really?
Yeah, that's not true. There's only just the one version where King Kong wins, because that was the Japanese production.
Yeah.
The there's that type of stuff. There was another one. What was it? I just had it.
Well, if you want to get into that, you're talking about all the backmasking.
Oh, well, you get into music, and then you get into like all the backmasking. Like, if you play "Stairway to Heaven" backwards, it says "My Sweet Satan" or something like that. If you,
I don't know about that one.
Whatever,
Now, I've done that to the Beatles' White Albums.
The Paul is Dead.
The Paul is Dead. Missing.
Yeah. Was it "Turn Me On, Dead Man"?
Yeah.
He says at one point, and this kind of stuff.
Those are actually there now. Whether they were meant to be there or not,
whatever. I know.
But if you take it and you play it back, it actually sounds like what they're saying it is. It's kind of cool.
One of my
I can't believe I was actually doing that to a sit.
I know,
because he had the White Albums.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that to.
We were both. I think he had stolen from his parents' house or something, so and we were both like 14 or 15 or something.
One of my favorite, and I put urban legends in quotes because it's really not an urban legend so much, except for the fact that like a lot of legends sprung up around this movie.
Okay.
That were not intentional, and that was, remember when we were growing up. Okay, there was this movie that would show up every once in a while in a video store, and on the front cover it would say "Banned in 34 countries."
Oh my goodness!
It's Faces of Death. Okay,
how many of those did they put?
They made put out 4 or 5 of them. The first one though, it's funny because like every bit of it is fake. Every bit of it is fake.
Well, if you remember,
I take that back. There are a couple of news, like some clips of news footage stuff that's not, but it's not graphic either. But all that other stuff is completely
recreations.
Fake. Yeah, but the thing is that the people who, when they were they made it in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay. And when they were making the movie, they knew that they were told, we want you to. The people who were in the movie were like, yeah, we're making a horror movie, this is blah blah blah, and they did all this stuff. Well, then whenever it came to the U.S., all of a sudden it was being touted as real, and they were all like, no, we filmed all this in Japan like 2 years ago, type stuff. And there was a ton of build up, like you hear kids on the playground, oh, did you see, oh, this is blah blah blah, and it was
always getting banned, it was always getting pulled.
I know.
I think at one point it got moved to like the adult rooms.
Yeah, I know. It was. There was also the movie Snuff. I don't know if you remember that one or not.
I remember hearing about it.
Okay, I remember because the video store that I worked at was a movie gallery.
Yeah.
It started off, it was a mom and pop thing. They were bought out or whatever. They had the movie. It was in the horror section, and the whole thing was on the front cover.
Yeah,
it said Snuff, and it says, "Does someone really get killed at the end of this movie?" And it was one of those things they were playing up on the "this might be real." Another one that was Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes.
That again, because they shot it like it was a found footage. This is before found footage. This is back,
This is before the Blair Witch Project.
Right, way before all of that. But the thing that is kind of interesting about it is that they use real footage of natives. Wherever it was, they're supposed to be. I think it's in South America, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds
and
right.
there is real footage of them slaughtering a sea turtle that they're cooking, type stuff. They put that in there, but all the other stuff was completely fake, But they build it as, oh, this was real footage that we found, and these people didn't make it out of the jungle alive, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you remember Rivergate 8 at one point did a midnight showing of Faces of Death.
I know.
And I'll admit, I went to it, sat through it, enjoyed it like the popcorn movie that it is.
It's exactly what I know.
And then walked out of there with my certificate. I made it all the way through Faces of Death.
I know. They and that was the whole, they would do those midnight showings.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if you can make it all the way through, you get the certificate and blah blah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of the things that was cool. These days, again, going back in the internet age, everything can be debunked so easily. Of course, then you have the flat earthers who, no matter how much you try to debunk their crap, they still want to argue about it, or the anti-vaxxers, or any number of, and it's just like, oh God, seriously, guys.
My question is, with all this social distancing, has anybody been pushed over the edge yet?
I don't know. Well, here's the thing. I know but yeah. Now, my favorite one with that though, people like, here's proof that the Earth isn't flat. because cats aren't knocking water glasses off the edge of it. So it's
yeah, if the Earth was flat, cats would have pushed
lined up there pushing everything off
edge.
the edge. So it's so yeah, I know it's but yeah, urban legends, man, they're always perpetuating themselves. There's always new ones. You keep hearing new. You know, chupacabra is something new that that's been just in the last 20-ish years.
Yeah, that's about right.
It started in Puerto Rico. That's where that's where this started, and then it's kind of
it was probably a goat with some really bad mange and rabies,
right? And so there's that type of stuff, that keeps. The Jersey Devil. Keeps perpetuating itself.
Mothman.
And that and the thing is with the
what's that place up in Maryland where it's like all wilderness? It's like a new like.
Oh, you're talking about.
It's like it's all wilderness, and it's almost like its own version of the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, there is a. I forget what. As soon as you said, I can't remember the name, but there is a. It's outside of. Is it near Boston?
Is it in Massachusetts? No, it's in Maryland. Or
no. It's maybe it is Maryland. No, I think it is Maryland. But there's one. It's kind of they call it like the black something, or I forget what it is. But it is. It's there's this tract of forest. That is kind of a dead zone. Like nothing lives in there. Nothing. People
go in there and disappear.
Yeah, and now some of that probably has to do with the fact that it's so dense, and there's so much undergrowth, and people don't know what the topography is and all that kind of stuff. But there are stories that have come out of there.
What's the island in Japan? Suicide Island.
Oh, you're talking about the forest, the suicide forest.
The suicide forest.
Yeah, there's a forest where people go and legitimately they go in there and clean out dead bodies quite often. That's where people will go to commit suicide. What's his name? Logan Paul got in trouble about that a couple of years ago because they went there. You remember that? You know who Logan Paul is, right? Yeah, the YouTuber.
That moron.
That moron and his crew went to Japan and they went to that forest and they actually videotaped a dead body hanging from a tree and posted it to their YouTube. And it's like one of those things of because there are signs everywhere going into look, enter at your own risk. You may find a dead body.
Well, there's also signs everywhere, of positivity.
Yeah, trying to get people to not do
please
it.
Please call for help.
Yeah. And it's crazy. It's crazy. You're talking about that. The Japanese actually have an urban legend that's pretty cool. Let me find it here because I saw a thing about it. Because what it is it's this woman that walks around. Here it is. That she's wearing let's see if I can find it here. She's wearing a surgical mask. And let me see if I can find it here. And it's one that's come in in the last
10 years or so.
Yes, here it is. It's the Kuchisake Onna.
Okay.
Which translates to the slit-mouthed woman. Basically what it is...
I think I've heard of this one.
She's an urban legend about the malevolent spirit, the Onryo, of a woman with a mutilated mouth. She's said to partially cover her face with a mask or object and reportedly carries a sharp tool of some kind, such as a knife or a large pair of scissors. According to popular legend, she will ask potential victims if they think she is attractive. If an individual responds with no, she will kill them with her weapon. If they say yes, she will then reveal that the corners of her mouth have been slit from ear to ear. If the individual again responds that she is unattractive, or if they scream in fright, she will kill them with her weapon. If they say yes, she will cut the corners of their mouth in such a way that mimics her own disfigurement. And it's basically to survive an encounter with the Kuchisake Onna. It is said that individuals may answer her question by describing her appearance as average or distract her with money or hard candies. Now,
wow,
I remember hearing about that, and it's one of those things that, apparently, about a decade ago, sightings of this woman skyrocketed around Japan, especially in in Tokyo and different places in cities. It got so popular that, do you remember the television show? I don't know. You do Constantine. That was the Hellblazer. The adaptation. There was an episode that dealt with this.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, as soon as I saw, like, whenever I saw, like, her come out and she was wearing the surgical mask, I was like, oh, I know what this is.
I wish they'd bring that show back because
they keep talking.
Yeah,
I know they're bringing him into the DCU. I know.
Well, he's already been on the DCU
right.
because he's been part of the League of Legends.
Yeah.
He's basically the supernatural version of the League at this point.
Right. And then they brought a Swamp Thing into that too, didn't they? Yeah.
Well, talking about TV shows, I know I keep going back to Supernatural, but that's kind of what they deal with. But they did an episode of where there was this haunted house. Mm-hmm. And as the story goes on, you find out it's a brother and a sister that went into this old abandoned house, basically invented a story, painted a bunch of occult symbols on the walls. One of the symbols is an actual occult, symbol that, and then they posted the story and the pictures on the internet. Mm-hmm. Well, mass belief actually brings the whole thing into reality.
Right. It's this whole tulpa is what it is.
Yeah.
It's people believe it into existence. So
they believe it into existence. Yeah. And every time that the story changed on the internet, the way things happened at the house changed.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah.
And so the way they ended up having to fix it is they had to leak it. There was another group. They're called ghost facers. It's basically a geeky couple of guys that go ghost hunting that have a video blog of them ghost hunting.
So they had every ghost hunter on the internet. That's what it is.
So they basically had to leak a false story to those guys to get it out on the internet so that they basically wrote the way they were going to kill the thing.
Right.
And then they burned the house down.
That reminds me of some local stuff when I was a kid or when I was a teenager anyway. There was a place over here in Madison where we are not far from where we are now. It was all the way down at the end of this road, that kind of was a dead end road or whatever. And there was this building that was down there.
What?
Over near the Kmart. Like if you kept going down like that road past Kmart.
Dude,
all the way
I
down.
drove down there.
The Aussie Church was down there. That was the whole thing with that. They kept talking. Basically what it was an abandoned building that someone had spray painted Aussie on the side of it. Well, somebody started selling, that's where Satan worshipers go, and they hold their they hold their rituals and stuff. And so that became known as the Aussie Church,
Yeah.
Now, back the other way, the Spring Hill Cemetery, which is basically across the street from, it's back up, but it's across the street from where you return to go to there. I knew people who said that there were people who that there were Satanists that were hold rituals over there at night, and stuff. Now, there was never any substantiation to that. It was just a legend. And that's the whole thing. You had the Satanic Panic in the 80s, which is something we're probably going to talk about later on this OctoberFest, because we have a couple of things that kind of intersect with it.
Gotcha.
But the 80s were an interesting time to grow up because of everybody believed that Satan was around every corner. So
talking about that, when I lived in Illinois, when I was in high school, there was this little graveyard out in the middle of nowhere that everybody referred to as the Casbah.
Uh-huh.
And that's where everybody would go out to do, the partying and the,
you
whatever.
Go out and smoke pot and have sex.
We never did that,
Well,
but
you weren't, but all the cool kids were.
I'm not cool. I'm always home. I'm not cool.
That's right.
But the interesting thing about the graveyard is there was actually a couple of old gravestones.
Oh, yeah.
That actually had like pentagrams on them.
Oh, nice. Well, the pentagrams, or were they pinnacles? We know there's a difference between the two.
Honestly, it's been so long, I don't remember. It was either a pinnacle or pentagram, but the rumor is that there were some witches that were buried up there. Yeah. And that in the field behind the graveyard, there were Satan worshipers.
Right.
Well, there was one night we went out there, me and some buddies were out, we drove out there, and just as we were pulling in the driveway to go back to the graveyard, we see behind the graveyard a bonfire and a bunch of people standing around in robes. I actually saw this.
Okay.
And we went, nope, not tonight. Shut the lights off, backed out, and got the heck out of there.
All right.
If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, no.
Wasn't a friend of a friend, is it?
No, this was me with my own peepers.
Fair enough.
I was like, no.
Again, I personally know people who swear to this over here, so that swear they saw it with their own eyes.
Now, I didn't drive down there and go, "Hi guys,
what's going on?" Yeah,
are you guys worshiping Satan down here? Is that nifty thing you're doing down here with these robes and this bonfire? No.
Robe and a bonfire, it could have easily been the Klan. I mean, it's
Well, if they'd been white robes, I'd agree with you, but they were not white robes.
You never know. So it's something we didn't talk about that is very much urban legend.
Oh.
Jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
Basically, and the thing is that it goes in with
started over in Ireland.
It did. Basically, what I've heard a couple of different stories about Jack, that he was so evil that he died. Yeah. And of course, he didn't make it into heaven. Or no, or what it was is here's the story I heard. The devil sent his sons to go collect Jack.
Yeah.
And he was so evil in and of himself that I forget the exact one. He did something to the devil's sons, and they all ran back to hell. Whatever. And so when he died, of course, he didn't make it into heaven. And then, so he's going to hell. Well, when he's approaching the gates of hell, the devil's sons see him, and they're like, "No, don't let him in. That's the guy we were telling you about." Blah blah blah. So the devil's like, "You can't come to hell either." And he's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? I can't get into heaven." And so they took a coal from hell and put it in a jack-o'-lantern, or a carved pumpkin, and gave it to him and said, "You just have to go roam the earth." And that's the whole.
Technically, it started out in Ireland, and it was a
turnip. Yeah, I know. It's
you used to carve turnips for Samhain.
With that, there are plenty of stories of.
It didn't become the pumpkin until it came to the U.S.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're bigger. They're easier to carve.
And even then, it started out with smaller gourds.
Right,
and stuff.
right. But the thing is that something that kind of spun out of that was once we had the Industrial Revolution and we got the steam engines, with the trains and stuff. There was always a legend of several places around where a conductor, a train wrecked or something like that, and whatever, and you see a lantern walking up and down looking for its head, or any number of
things. You get the lantern man,
right? And
which is the guy that would walk the train while the train was moving to check everything.
And there's plenty of there's some explanation of those, as well as there's some of them that just cannot be explained at all. But that's another one that's a very, very prevalent around the U.S. There's many places where this story gets told,
of the ghost lantern man.
Right. So anyway, now that I think we've probably reached the end of it, of where we are. But the thing is we really enjoy these types of stories.
Oh, yeah.
I love, when I was a kid, man, I used to buy the books of stories like this and read them, and not just at Halloween. I would, every time we'd have one of those scholastic, the reader,
the book school, the book fairs.
I would wind up buying books about this type of stuff and reading it because I love this time of year. This time of year. Yeah.
Ghost stories, Frankenstein, all those books.
I've read Frankenstein, I've read Dracula, I've read The Invisible Man, all that stuff. And, and then of course you get the Stephen King when you're a little older, and, a few other things here and there. But I always come back to a lot of this folklore because it's very interesting to see where a lot of it came from.
Well, even as a kid, the librarians hated me because I was already an advanced reader. But two, I was always going in there, where are your ghost stories? And they'd take me over to the fiction. I'm like, no, I want the real stuff. And they'd have to take me over to the section that had the ghosts, the UFOs, the cryptids.
Right. Well, that was, Time Life books. The Mysteries of the Unknown, that whole series, And I've looked several times. I've found volumes of that over the years, but I've never found a complete. I probably could have put together a complete set of them, at used bookstores or whatever. Sometimes at like Goodwill, you can find volumes of them, that kind of stuff. Of course, those have become a little more
harder to find.
Harder to find now because people our age remember those
and snatched them
books, those commercials and stuff. And so, but I do remember that our school library had them, which is really funny considering I went to a private Christian school.
I would have killed for that.
We had a pretty decent library though, but those were all there, and I remember going in there in the library and going right straight to those and reading the different stuff. There was one about ghosts, there was one about dragons, there was one about UFOs, there's a whole bunch of different that were all in this one thing.
Well, I was in 5th grade and we had to do a book report, and we all went down to the library to get, and I picked out Death is a Lonely Business by Ray Bradbury. And
Bradbury's always a good one to go with.
Well, we're talking 5th grade here.
Yeah, I know.
And the librarian was like, no, that's not for you. And I was like, yeah, I can read this. And they're like, and she made me read the first chapter out loud and explain the first chapter to prove that I was, advanced enough to read it. And she evidently called my mother, and my mother's like, oh no, he walks around the house with the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe, reading it around the house.
I remember getting a reading Poe when I was a young teenager, like really getting into that stuff.
Now, Mom tells the story that I would never sit in a room by myself and read Edgar Allan Poe.
No.
But as long as there was somebody in the room with me, I was reading Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the same thing. I would sit there and read those books at night before I went to bed, and then I would lay in bed for half an hour, eyes wide open, like surveying the entire room, just type stuff. But
oh no, I'd fall asleep at the drop of a hat. But then I would have nightmares all night.
I've always had trouble sleeping, even when I was little like that.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things, and of course, lights go out and your imagination goes wild.
Well,
and yeah.
In Kentucky, the way the curtains pulled over the top of the window, they would pull them across each other. So the way the light shined through the window, it looked like a witch's hat. So I was always freaked out that there was a witch looking in my window.
I know. It's funny because I know we're getting off topic here, but like when I was growing up, there was there were not real thick, but there were woods behind my house. They built a subdivision back in there 20-ish years ago, and all of it's gone. And that kind of stuff. But there was a pretty decent sized one. I'm talking about like I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Sure.
There were some older kids that lived down the street.
Yeah.
That were probably 11 or 12, somewhere in there, that had me convinced that Bigfoot lived in those woods behind my house.
Well, I mean, it's Tennessee. There's a possibility.
But even then, this was still really urban, okay? It was
I know.
But it was still one of those things that at that young age, I was convinced that Bigfoot lived in those woods. So
Bigfoot.
And that was another thing I got really into.
Bigfoot
and all that kind of, Sasquatch. Eventually I learned, it's more than just Bigfoot's just a nickname for, but and all that kind of stuff.
Sasquatch. There's also the skunk ape, which is more up towards
all the
northern Kentucky and Pennsylvania.
The skunk ape is in Florida.
Is that Florida?
It's in Florida. You have Momo, which is in Missouri. You have the, of course, now I can't think of it. Of course, you have the was it the Wolf of Bray? Oh God, there's a werewolf in Wisconsin.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that.
You get further out west, you start talking about the Wendigos.
That's more up north. That's Canadian.
They've got it in like Washington, Oregon.
It's usually native. It's usually native. I think we talked about this before one time, but it really is a lot of the tribes that were up north and into Canada. They talk about the Wendigo, and the Wendigo was more of a spirit than.
Wendigo was more man goes crazy, man eats.
Right, starts eating
men flesh. And
have you ever seen what's the name of that movie? Ravenous.
No.
Okay. It's an interesting movie. It came out in the late 90s.
Okay.
Like 98, 99, somewhere around in there. I can't remember who all's in it. The only person.
Is Christian Bale in that?
I don't know.
I feel like I remember seeing Christian Bale in the previews.
Maybe this was Christian Bale before he was Christian Bale. It does have David Arquette in a small role, but it Ravenous 99. Guy Pearce, David Arquette, Jeffrey Jones. I don't know. It's loosely based on the Donner Party. Loosely based on the Donner Party. And the whole thing is that Guy Pearce was the only one that survived an Indian massacre. And he was basically buried underneath a pile of dead soldiers. And he pretended to be dead. And to survive being buried under there, he wound up eating the flesh of the other soldiers, until he got out. And it was one of those things that he gets back, and he's kind of heralded as a hero because he survived. But the higher ups know that he wasn't really a hero. He was a coward, and so they send him like further out west to like this really remote outpost.
Yeah.
And that is the whole thing where the Wendigo comes in, where there is another officer who is actively cannibalizing the other people to gain strength and kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this much: I remember watching the movie and being like, it's okay. The soundtrack is freaking phenomenal.
Really?
And it's a lot of banjo music. It's very it's very no. It's very minimalist.
Yeah.
Like very minimalist and stuff. But that was one of those things. I remember walking away going, man, this soundtrack is great. And there actually is a soundtrack. It's just the score to it,
and check that
out. But the movie might be worth a revisit. I have not seen it in 20 plus years.
Yeah.
The only reason that I saw it, to be honest, is because I had sneak preview passes, and I was like, okay, you should go see this. And then it was kind of one of those like, I probably could have spent that hour and a half somewhere else. But David Arquette does get killed, so there's that.
Oh no!
But other people have kind of come around on it after time, like, hey, this is something that most people didn't see.
Yeah,
but it definitely deals with the Wendigo.
Yeah.
So definitely something to check out. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening to us for the last hour-ish about all this stuff.
Send us an email or hit us up on Facebook and let us know about the urban legends
Absolutely.
that you remember hearing.
You can find us anywhere on social media where, Instagram, Facebook, Parler,
all the social media
whatever,
stuff.
all the Twitter. I almost forgot Twitter.
This
Project Gen X Pod. You can find us all there. You can email us projectgenxpod@gmail.com. Go check out caffeineandsleepingpills.com because there is new stuff. By the time this episode hits, there's going to be new stuff that's on there. I'm even working on getting Dave to write some stuff. So.
I'm not a writer, man. We'll
figure it out. Something.
Hey, and this stuff is it's a lot more fun when you guys interact with us. If you would send us messages, hit us up on Facebook.
Tell us something you might want to hear. Because we're always up for, hey, if you guys want to hear it, we'll talk about it. But, sometimes it's fun, even if we don't know about it, to go and do the research and learn something new.
Or might find a new movie
you
or
never
some
know.
New music.
So
come on, guys. Please interact with us. We want to talk to you. We want to be a community.
That's what we are. And, hey, also, thanks for share this with your friends. We've actually seen an uptick in listeners here recently, which has been nice because we were really down during the summer, and then all of a sudden we had this huge uptick in listeners.
For those of you who have been plugging the show, we really appreciate it. We love all of y'all. If you could just keep doing it.
Right. And hey, one other thing you could do for us is whether it's Apple Podcasts or it's Spotify or it's
we're not on Spotify.
We're not on Spotify.
We're not doing Spotify because their terms of service are
their terms of service is very whether it's a Podbean or it's Podcast Addict or whatever it is that you listen to us on.
Go and rate us.
Go
please.
And give us a rating and leave a review because that helps us out tremendously, like you wouldn't believe. I mean that because it's one of those things that keeps us up in the rankings.
The review really helps.
And it will really, especially in Apple Podcast,
especially in
that
Apple
is one
Podcast.
of the things that is basically a currency on there is your reviews and ratings.
Hey, I'd love to be picked a podcast of the week.
Exactly, or something awesome. That would be awesome. Not that we're begging for it.
I'm begging. I'm begging. I'm begging. I have no shame or pride. I'm begging.
But no,
please.
That really, like I said, it doesn't cost you hardly any time, and it helps us tremendously.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. I am Alan Smith.
And I'm Big Dave.
And we will see you next time.
See ya.